It's been 4 months now since Russia invaded Ukraine, an invasion that has caused Europe's largest refugee crisis since World War II. More than 8 million Ukrainians have had to flee their homes. A third of the population has been displaced. So throughout all of this, we've been talking regularly to Ukrainian MP Ina Sovsun since the war began, actually. And after a particularly harrowing week, we wanted to check in with her again. Ina Sovsun joins us by telephone. Ina, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for speaking to me again.
So what is the current situation in Ukraine and Kyiv right now?
Well, the situation in Kyiv today specifically is very calm. It's so calm that it makes us all nervous because for 5 days before that, we were getting air raid alerts 3-4 times a day. And of course, you all have seen that some Russian missiles did hit Kyiv. And then, of course, there was a big hit on the shopping center in Kremenchuk. So the last day, 24 hours, not a single air raid alert. That actually makes us all a bit worried, particularly given that there are ongoing rumors that Russia may restart the attack from the north, from Belarus, and try to get closer to Kyiv again. So this is calm, but I would say it's nervously calm. But of course, the situation is so much worse on the east. That is where the real battle is taking place right now. And unfortunately, Ukrainian army is doing miracles. But Russians do have superiority in artillery. And Ukrainian army, no matter how brave our soldiers are, they cannot fight against Russian artillery. And unfortunately, we're losing ground over there on the east. So it is what it is. And of course, we're nervously following what is happening over there.
So 4 months, you know, we've spoken a lot about the resilience, the perseverance, the determination of Ukrainian people, in particular the soldiers. How's that going? Is the resilience still there?
Definitely. And I will tell you this, it's actually higher than it can be imagined. I wouldn't say it's higher than 3 months ago, but it's not going down. Particularly now after so much of the Russian cruelty has been revealed. There was a recent polling done in Ukraine which shows that 50% of Ukrainians say that they have lost either a family member or someone they know as a result of this war. That, of course, makes people willing to get engaged, willing to help the army as much as possible, and for those who are actually fighting, to fight back in order to get some justice for the victims of the Russian aggression.
So the spirit to fight is still there. The determination to win this is still there. I'm glad to hear that. Ina, you're incredibly active on social media, and you were tweeting today about Putin using gas as a geopolitical weapon. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Definitely. Unfortunately, as of right now, Russia is able to sustain this war for a single reason. It's receiving billions every single day from Europe as payments for energy sources, for gas and oil. And actually, right now, because of the situation on the energy market, Russia is actually getting richer than it was getting a year before, which is nonsensical. It shouldn't work this way. European Union, if it says that it stands with Ukraine, should really be standing with Ukraine. Unfortunately, right now, the toughest decisions that need to be taken by the EU about cutting off Russian gas are not being taken. And even some decisions which are yet to be taken, for instance, the upcoming vote in the European Parliament on the so-called EU taxonomy on the green investments, which the document which itself has been built on the principle of easy access to cheap Russian gas. It's unclear what the final decision of the European Parliament on that document will be. That is why it feels for us that we are getting lots of support in words, but when it comes to action, in terms of embargo for gas and oil, or delivering heavy weapons to the Ukrainian army to supplement the immense spirit of our soldiers, that is not coming to be a reality, unfortunately.
And why do you think that is? Do you feel like the EU just thinks they're doing all they can?
I cannot believe that this is what European Union truly believes it is doing. I think it is trying to compromise. I think it is trying to appease the aggressor. I think that politicians are thinking politics and not thinking survival of the whole continent. because they cannot seriously believe that what they're doing right now is enough to save not just Ukraine, but actually the whole European Union. But for multiple reasons, be it elections in France, be it close connections of Germany with the Russian political elites, for multiple other reasons, they're just unwilling to take big decisions. And for me, it looks like Europe is unable to raise up to the moment that we're living through. And it very much is reminiscent to the beginning of the World War II, where Europe was hoping that it can, step back and be somewhere outside of the conflict. It always ends up badly, as we know. We should have learned this lesson. But unfortunately, right now, I'm not seeing the leadership from the European Union that I wished I saw.
And then I'd like to know what you think about Western countries. President Zelensky was speaking to Canadian university students the other day, and he was saying that he's quite happy with Canada's involvement, and especially we're welcoming refugees. And yet I feel like there's a sense of helplessness, certainly among Ukrainian Canadians, but I would go so far as to say Canadians on the whole. Are Western countries doing enough, Ina?
I'll tell you this. Unfortunately, right now, Ukrainian army is losing territory for a single reason, because Russians have much more artillery than we do. The artillery that the West promised it can supply to Ukraine, but it is not supplying. We are losing dozens, sometimes hundreds of people a day who could have been saved if the West delivered on its promises. Particularly the United States, because the big package of help, military help to Ukraine, is somehow stuck in bureaucratic nuances or whatever else. And unfortunately, we're not getting all the support that we were supposed to be getting. And that is why we're losing people. And that is very, very scary. I wouldn't say it's a sense of frustration. We are still grateful for the help that we are getting, but it's not enough. It's enough to get us going, but it's not enough to save lives. It's not enough to save our country. It's not enough to save other countries where Russia is planning to go further if it takes over Ukraine.
As complacency, I think, unfortunately sets in, as things drag on and there doesn't seem to be an end in sight. I was thinking about what message we can give to people to try and keep people engaged and know that we have to keep fighting and it's far from over. You wrote on social media of children hearing a thunderstorm and their reaction to that. Can you tell us about that, Ina? And I just feel like that might help, get people out of their complacency.
Yes, I actually brought my son from the western Ukraine to Kyiv region, to my parents' place 3 days ago. And first of all, the first night I was putting my son to bed, and he's 9. He said, "Mom, the war is much closer here than when we were in the western Ukraine. Am I safe here?" And I want every single person listening to this now try to imagine how you would feel if your child would ask you that. But then the next day after that, my son Martin, he was playing with his friend, also a 9-year-old, and that 9-year-old had a brother with him, and his brother is 4. And suddenly a thunderstorm started, and we could hear the thunder, which was pretty loud. And this 4-year-old kid ran up to me. His mom was not there because they were playing with my son. He ran up to me and said, "We should go to the basement." And he was looking at me, his eyes were scared, and he said, "We should go to the basement." And I had to explain to him that it's just thunder, it's weather, it's not the Russians coming back. But the thing is that he had to spend in his grandparents' place the first 2 weeks of the war in the area near Kyiv, as Russians were encircling the city. The Russians were not in that village, but they were firing at that village, the village where my parents live. And this child, 4-year-old, had to stay in the cold basement in the middle of the winter, Ukrainian winter, for 2 weeks. And now the kid is afraid of thunders, and I think he will be afraid for the rest of his life. That is how scary that is. I want everyone to understand that this is what we're going through. Our children are scared, even those who have not experienced war directly, like kids in Kharkiv did, who spent 3 months in the underground. But even children who have been relatively safe, they're traumatized for the rest of their life. And the only single way to stop this, to make sure that people are not traumatized anymore, is to give us heavy weapons. I know everybody wants to be nice, to provide humanitarian aid, to take in refugees, and so on and so forth, but that doesn't solve the problem. The only solution comes from giving us artillery, comes from giving us long-range missiles so that we can actually fight back and stop the Russians. And that is what I want the people to know, is that humanitarian action right now is to give weapons to the Ukrainian army, no matter how unpeaceful that might sound. But this is the only solution that can actually stop this from happening.
As always, Ina, thank you so very much for your time, and please take care.
Thank you so much.
That is Ina Sovsun. She is the People's Deputy of Ukraine, a Ukrainian MP.